it was a lot of good guessing. I'm not a business guy. I'm a plumber. I barely graduated high school, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm just a hustler. We were just having fun, and then all of a sudden, COVID happened, and it was like, wake up.
Meet Chuck Staszkiewicz. He started with a $2,000 van and built a company worth $20 million a year. From plumber to blue collar millionaire.
The number one lesson that I learned there was, if I had the knowledge that I had at year 9 and year 1 or 2, where would I have been sitting?
Revenue, vanity, profit is sanity.
Yeah. I mean, all the sayings, all the quotes on it. Like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we got in business to make money.
That's right.
America's backbone was built on blue-collar business grit, grind, and muscle. This is where you stop working for the business, and the business starts working for you.
Blue Collar Millionaires, here is another episode with a friend and a special guest of ours, Chuck Staszkiewicz. I had to ask his name a few times before we got on here. It is a unique name, but I like unique because it sticks in your head. Me and Kevin's had the opportunity to meet Chuck almost about a year ago, maybe.
Yeah.
You've done some incredible things. Our last podcast, we were talking about Kevin's recent exit. You've made an exit.
Yeah.
I can't wait to dive into that. We really want the audience, that's what this podcast is about, is people growing and scaling their business so that they can change their family tree. And one great way to do that is to be able to take chips off the table by selling a business that is an asset to someone else. That's why they're willing to pay for it. So thanks for coming on the podcast, man.
Thanks, my friend. Appreciate it. Thanks, both of you.
Yeah,
thanks for
absolutely.
coming on. Tell us about how it started.
Yeah, 27 years ago, I started in plumbing. Worked for a couple larger companies. Started in New Jersey in 2008. Moved to Salt Lake. Didn't know anybody. Worked for a couple bigger companies there. Got the law of the land, kind of different atmosphere and things. And then the funny thing was, I was kind of forced to start my own thing. Right. 2008 was that weird time, right? But, as we were coming out of that weird time, the last big recession, whatever you want to call it, things were different. And I was having my first kid, so I had all the leverage in the world to succeed, right? And 2011 came around, and I started. I'm a great employee, but I'm also not a great employee. This makes me a great entrepreneur. And then 2011, I got let go because I didn't agree with some of the things and policies that they had in place. And I was consistently, out of like 17 techs, I was consistently in the top four in sales. And I just said, okay. I had owned my own company before in Jersey, and I was tired of doing the side hustle, right? The moonlighting and all that stuff. I was tired of doing that. So I didn't really focus on that. I moved to Salt Lake because I wanted to ski a ton. I wanted to work for somebody, go home and not think about work, and that's what I did. But then, I was leveraged in the fact that I was having a kid, and I lost my job, and I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do? So
That's a motivator.
Huge motivator. And I said, okay, I'll start small. I'll go 3 trucks, right? And started in 2011, June of 2011. My daughter was born in July of 2011. And I did it mostly because I'm like, I'll start a business and I'll have all this time and I could spend with her, right? And I remember very clearly, I was like, okay. And then, it shifted. It was like, okay, I want 3 trucks. And first couple years, that was where I got. And I started with no capital, started out of my garage. Bought a $2,000 van, white, one that you don't drive through the school zones. You know what I mean? So
I had one of those.
yeah. It was the craziest thing. But and I remember sitting in a bagel shop with my first digital marketing guy, and he's like, really, to be competitive in your area, you got to spend somewhere around $1,200 a month. And I was like, $1,200 a month? Holy cow, this is crazy. But that, that's kind of how it all started, meeting in a bagel shop, starting out of my garage. Hiring my first employee was someone that my parents found to do landscaping around their house on Craigslist. And he was such a good guy. I was like, what, you're mechanical. Like, why don't you come work for me? And it just morphed from there. And the first 3 years were slow. You know, like we scaled a little bit, put the 3 trucks on the road, and you know, it then was like, okay, if I can do this with cash, how do I leverage capital behind it? You know, and started going to the banks and thinking differently and bigger, right? And by doing the digital marketing for that period of time, it really kicked in, and I started seeing other guys that were just opening up, and you know, they were, you know, in their first year, they were putting 15 trucks on the road. And I'm like, wait, they're not smarter than me. If they can do it, I can do it. Right. So I started asking them questions like, man, how are you doing this? Like, you know, and they weren't paying cash. They were leveraging the capital side. So I started to play in that side. And in year 2, one of my really good friends, I started just doing plumbing and drain cleaning and boilers. And then one of my really good friends calls me and was like, hey, you know, my boss just passed away suddenly, and he was an HVAC guy. And he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to feed my family. And I'm like, I don't know either, but can you start Monday? And that just, we became 50-50 partners on the HVAC side. Yeah. And from there, we just had fun.
Yeah.
That was it, man. And it was like, we weren't worried about numbers. We weren't worried about, you know, KPIs, scorecards, any of this stuff. We just went out and did the work, and we were having fun. You know, we'd be on job sites, throwing things at each other, cursing, talking about, you know, whatever's going on in our lives. And it was like hanging out, but it was a job.
Yeah.
Right. And then it was really interesting because we did that really well for a long time, about 9 years. We were just having fun. And then all of a sudden, COVID happened. And it was like, wake up, right? And it was like, before that, I felt like I was untouchable. I had a lot of success. In those 9 years, we went from 0 to $12 million a year top line revenue. We had about 60-something employees, and I felt like I was unstoppable because it was like nothing, you know, we didn't have any systems processes. We didn't have like it super dialed in, but the work was always there. The money was always there. You could borrow at a really good rate at the time, you know, like we made some really quick, fast decisions. The foundation was there. But then when COVID hit, I said, oh, crap, we're in trouble. Wake up. And I said, you know, at the time, COVID hit March-ish, shut businesses down. I'd hired my sister as a general manager in February. And I remember the conversation I had with her and my partner. It was a Thursday night, and I'll never forget because it was coming down. Like, people were getting shut down and stuff. And I was like, we need to triple down on marketing, and we need to get training as fast as we possibly can. And that's exactly what we did. So we started looking at some coaching and some mentoring groups and opportunities. And the reason that I wanted to do that is I wanted to know what I didn't know. You know, and I was bringing my sister in from a different industry. So I wanted to get her up to speed lightning quick. And I found a great organization, a great mentor, and I went all in, 100% in. I signed up for their biggest program, you know, the bells and whistles, the biggest support, as many meetings as I possibly could, started asking the right questions, and I ingrained myself, my sister, and my partner in that. Because I wanted to get her up to speed. And then I realized after the first meeting with them, I realized I didn't know anything about business. Wow. And I humbled the shit out of myself. Yeah. You know, and I had to like look at everything. And I was like, I've had some great success, but I got really lucky. You know, and it opened my eyes and made me look at, okay, what can I do differently immediately, right? And at first we started focusing on the wrong things. You know, we started implementing the wrong things. But then as we progressed with the people that had done it before us, you know, we started to know and realize the right things to do. And that's when it morphed, like literally, it feels like it was overnight. But in that first year of hiring a mentor, 2020, the year COVID hit, we lost $500,000. That's because me and my partner finally got out of a truck after 9 years, and it all caught up to us. Right? We were the business. We were the sales. We were the profit. We were, you know, before that, we were 30% profit. You know, we got out of a truck. We went to negative. We lost $500,000.
Wow.
And then in that same time, with COVID going on, the business was coming in and we expanded. We went from like 60 to 75 employees to literally 100 and something like overnight. February of 2020, we also bought another business that fit in our vertical too. So now we had those employees and that revenue to look at. And it was a mess. I can be totally honest with you guys. Like, it was an absolute mess. And it took, that wake up call and humbling myself and saying, I don't know what I'm doing. And saying, like, I need help. Contractors and, blue collar guys are really bad at asking for help.
Absolutely.
Really, really bad at it. Because you're just like, I'll get in there and figure it out. I mean, I think you could say just about any entrepreneur is bad at asking for help because I'll figure it out. I'll do it on my own. I had the success, right? Like, nothing can stop me, right? Those kind of attitudes. But then when I humbled myself and I started getting up every single day and saying, I need to learn more before I do more, and started putting those things in place, we turned it around. It took us about a year. In 2020, we finished about 500,000 negative. 21, we finished at about 2% profit. 22, we finished north of 12% profit. And then we ultimately sold. We hit top line revenue about 20 million a year, 130 employees, and that was in 23. And our last month, we were about 17% profit. It's the best month ever in company history. And we sold. We got a 16x multiple on it.
It's amazing.
At the times were changing, man. Things were coming down the pipeline, and I saw the opportunity to do it. And it was pretty amazing because all the things that I wasn't putting in place that I should have been putting in place, like looking at my risk, assessing where I was risked at and all those stuff, it hit me. I got hit with a lawsuit, and it was a class action lawsuit that if I would have had a $200 insurance that I didn't ask about, might have protected me. But my house was on the line. It was coming after me personally.
Wow.
It was class action.
Yeah.
So at the federal level. So that was a big eye opener. So you have those two catastrophic events per se, COVID, and then a big lawsuit like that. You start to look at things a lot differently. And that's when I knew. I was like, maybe I want to de-risk myself a little bit in this situation. Maybe I want to look at it a lot differently and what can I do next, right? And it was great. I mean, it was a great run. 12 years on my own, 0 to 20 million in 12 years with 130 employees. And most of the time I didn't know what I was doing,
That's insane, dude.
Yeah, that's the key. So it's like looking at that all and saying, okay, if I did it without knowing what I was doing, and most entrepreneurs don't know what they're doing at first, and then it's like, okay, I implemented these things and we turned it around very fast. But I could say the number one lesson that I learned there was if I had the knowledge that I had at year 9 in year 1 or 2, where would I have been sitting at?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, I mean,
That's
10 million to not really have systems, processes, as you said it, you were just out there having fun.
Yep.
12 million, I mean, what contributed to hit 12 million? There are so many people that seems so far-fetched to hit 12 million in revenue. And I know we're talking about
With
revenue,
systems.
but
And you did it with kind of without.
Yeah. That's a really loaded question. I can honestly say it was a lot of good guessing. I'm not a business guy. I'm a plumber. I barely graduated high school, right?
Yeah.
I'm just a hustler, and I'm very good at getting in a situation and putting the pieces together and moving and shifting and doing it fast and the quick decisions. Like something came up, it was like answer. And some of the times, even that meeting that I had with my sister and partner when COVID hit, I look back on it now and I was like, where did I get that information? I didn't know that. I wasn't groomed with that. Nobody told me that. What sparked in me to say, let's triple down on marketing and get some training? I don't know. So it's a really loaded question. I just knew it had to be done.
But you started day one on digital marketing because someone else, you saw that's what they were.
Well, yes. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I know that I need to do this. I need to start somewhere. But I never stopped the other stuff. Like I was in the BNI, I was doing the home shows, I was doing the local events.
Okay.
I was meeting and greeting people everywhere. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't just digital marketing focus. And I never stopped. Even at 20 million a year, I had 3 or 4 people in BNIs. I
Yeah.
was still out there networking. Everywhere I went, because people couldn't say my last name, I was Chuck the plumber.
Yeah.
Right? And it's really interesting because a lot of these guys are so heavily dependent on digital marketing, and it's great. You have to have it. Like
Right.
it's one of the best ROIs, but they don't do the other things. And it's like when the digital marketing goes south or you got heavier competition, the other things that you're doing is going to outweigh that sometimes.
Yeah.
And then it's brand awareness. It's building that brand alongside of them seeing you on Google. Like a lot of the people, I can guarantee they seen me in another interaction or somewhere else, and then they saw it on Google, and that's why they chose me. I don't know what the percentages were, but yeah, that's a lot of it.
I think the study is like it's got I believe it's 7 points you have to have with a customer before subconsciously they're going to choose your brand when they need and they start to search.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I mean that's some pretty incredible growth. And then the fact that so tell me about when you brought your sister in, because probably most folks are visionaries listening to this podcast, and you didn't have systems rolling, although you were able to do very well without systems, which was impressive.
Yeah.
What happened between that 10 and 20 and Dana, your sister, coming in from a completely different industry?
Yeah, so I knew something wasn't right? Like I'm a field guy. I'm a technician. I'm a sales guy. I like being out in the field, right? So, but I just knew something wasn't right. I didn't know my numbers. I didn't have systems and processes, all that stuff, right? And I just said, like, look, there's got to be another way to do this. And like most entrepreneurs, your first business, you have a hard time trusting. I had a lot of family members working for me, so because I felt I could trust family. 90% of them worked out. There was the 10% that probably should have looked at that differently. Like sometimes family can be even worse than the average person, So, but to answer your question, Chris, like it was another one of those gut feelings that I was like, I've got it to this far, right? And I was really good at the things that I didn't want to do. I was really good at finding the people that were smarter than me that wanted to do those things. And Dana was one of those pieces, right? Like I didn't want to, I could handle the technicians. I could handle the warehouse. I could handle all that stuff, setting up the trucks and all the moving pieces, dealing with the vendors, all that stuff, right? Like, but I didn't want to go in and deal with the CSRs and the office and the back end stuff. And I just knew that there was a bigger play there. And we were sitting at Thanksgiving dinner, and Dana, she's an incredible, very strategic, very thought-driven person, and I didn't even think I could afford her, let alone I didn't know what I would have her do. And I just said to her, why don't you come work for me? Not knowing what would happen next. And she said, you know what? Yeah, let's do this.
Wow.
And I was like, oh crap. Like, now what? And we didn't even have a job title for her. I had no idea what she was going to do. The only thing I knew is she was a heavy salary.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I knew. And then again, you talk about why I started the company, leverage because I was going to have a kid.
Yeah.
Why did I was backed into a corner again with the high salary, COVID just hit, and knowing that I didn't know everything. That was all leverage for me. That was all leverage for me to go push even harder and figure out what were the things that I didn't know. So when I brought her in, I mean, she didn't even know what she was going to do, but that's the type of person she is, right? I'm the visionary. She's the implementer. I was good at wearing both hats for a long time. I mean, obviously getting to 12 million,
right?
I was able to do both, right? Like I had to. But when I brought her in, literally for the first 3 months, like we had some some very, very hard, difficult conversations, because it was like the COVID was coming down, and it was like, okay, who are we going to lay off? What vendors are we going to lose? What are the unnecessary expenses we have in the business right now? And this is all without knowing, like our P&L was a mess. Well, we didn't even know where it was going, right? But we made some really quick, fast gut decisions on it. And your gut will never lie. Your gut is never going to lie to you, right? And so she came in for the first 3 months alongside of the coaching mentor program that we had, and she just observed. And then we sat down and we strategically positioned her where she needed to be. Now, my general manager at the time that was in place, like, we put Dana in a different role, kind of like alongside of her. She got kind of hard feelings, but it was a lot of nobody was checking her work.
Yeah.
So a lot of things were, because again, my gut was telling me something needs to happen here. And that's when we uncovered a lot of things. And then we started to roll out those systems and processes, hiring correctly. I think one of the biggest changes that we did was an onboarding process. I mean, I was very good at recruiting. I was very good at getting top talent, A players, but they would come in and they would become a B or C player because of our onboarding, right? And it was just, they were bringing what they were doing from their last company, and it didn't fit at our company. So it would actually knock them down. So when we realized that, we increased our onboarding process. That it was like, okay, I don't care if you've been doing this for 30 or 40 years, you've never done it our way. And that first 2 weeks was literally focused on learning the all hours way. It was the all hours academy.
Yep.
And they had to go through, and we had a grueling in-house process. Like, okay, you may be A player, good sales guy, but this is how we want it delivered to our clients to give them the same experience throughout. And that's when it really started getting together, and like, it was uniform all around, So, yeah.
Very, very interesting. When I sit there and I think about my progression in business, the systems helped eliminate the chaos. Eliminate's probably too conclusive of a word. It helped reduce the chaos, and it also helped all of the individual team members have less stress, because they understood what was expected of them. Yep. But more importantly, you sat there and you said you brought Dana in beside your general manager, and that accountability. She had some hard feelings. I've said this before to many individuals inside my company. I'm like, look, if we ever find ourselves in a position where someone is slipping up and it's skeletons in the closet, it's our fault, because we didn't have the accountability set up, because we're talking about humans, sinners saved by grace kind of thing, Yep. And so we set them up for their side to justify it in their head somehow, to do what they knew really wasn't wrong, but it was justified, so therefore they were okay with doing it. So I think accountability is probably one of the biggest things, and keeping everything very transparent in the light. And the better we can do that, we're setting our team members up to become A players, because you could take a B player to an A player just by letting them know what's expected, and then having everything very transparent in front of everyone. Yeah. Like anything that we do in our company, I want to make sure that there's more than one set of eyes on it, because then it doesn't leave any room for dishonesty.
Checks and balances. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's really interesting too, because, I think back, the question you asked before is like, how did I get to 12 million with none of that in place? Like, having fun was definitely a big part of it, but those gut feelings, again, man, like knowing that there's something else, right? And those sleepless nights. And it's like, I look back and I'm not even mad at the person I had in place before I brought my sister in. It was all my fault.
Absolutely.
Because, and when you start to look at that and you treat your employees like that, if someone leaves, they do something wrong, they steal from you, they take a client, if you stop looking at it as like they're the problem, and you start to point the finger at yourself and say, what do I not have in place to stop that? You learn a lot more and you go faster.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's tough to do, and most people don't want to do it. It goes to the same person as the ego that doesn't want to learn is the same person that just says nobody wants to work.
Mhm.
We see guys in our group.
Yep.
Nobody wants to work. They did this. It gives you the power back.
Yeah.
You say, all right, because I always do that. I didn't do that for a long time. Then I thought, I hired them. Who told you to? I had a mentor say, who told you to do that? I'm like, well, I told them. I hired them. Yeah, don't do that again.
Well, look,
The red flags are there.
100%. Like everything that happens in your business is an opportunity. It's how you react to it, right? If you react in a negative way, you miss the opportunity to turn it into a positive.
Yeah.
What would be your advice? I mean, all right, so you've got Opus Gold's coaching group, you and
Mhm.
Dana.
Yep.
So y'all mentor business owners as well.
Yep.
And you get to see a lot of business. I mean, they're coming to you just like you did. You got
Mhm.
in a position where you said, "We need help."
Yep.
So these individuals coming to you need help. What do you see is the most consistent mistake that business owners are making?
I've been asked this question so many times. That's why I laugh. It's numbers. First thing that we look at is numbers. If you don't have your numbers correctly and you're doing jobs and some are profitable, some aren't, and you're just averaging out, you got to fix that first. You can't do anything else unless you understand your numbers. You got to understand your P&L. I do highly recommend building a budget. It may not be the right time immediately when you start working with us, but we're working towards building out that budget. And then you're not playing that guessing game and the gut feelings. You still are going to have, like, there's many times that even though I had a budget in place, I understood my numbers, I'm just like, F that, I'm going to do it anyways.
Yeah.
And a lot of those worked out. A lot of them didn't. Right. And that's when my team would come back and be like, told you, because we knew, but we weighed the risk reward ahead of time instead of back the first 9 years that I was doing it, where I was just all risk. I didn't know the rewards. With a budget and knowing your numbers and having everything set in place, you can really go in and decipher the risk reward ahead of time. And again, a lot of them, by having the instincts that I had for those first 9 years and then giving me that blueprint, that's why I went from 12 million to 20 million in a year. Was because it just made sense, because now I was combining them.
Right.
I still had the efforts of my gut feeling and the very quick reactions in putting the pieces together, but now I had data behind it, and accurate data.
Let's dive into the numbers real quick.
Yeah.
So define what a budget is for the business owners that have never had a budget.
Well, I mean, first of all, you got to make sure your chart of accounts are right. And Kevin, you're a numbers guy, so you understand this probably better than I do. I don't know how it all goes together.
Sure.
I just hire the smarter people,
Right.
right? But you got to have your chart of accounts aligned. And then everybody's like, especially in the blue collar trades, it's always, oh, what CRM are you using? Like,
Right.
what flashy one? But it's all how you set that CRM up from day one. I don't care if it's House Call Pro, Service Titan, any of the other ones out there. All of them have the same principle, and it's how you tell it to communicate with your QuickBooks and your numbers is where you're going to get your data, right? So if you don't set it up correctly and you skip steps and missteps, you're going to be getting garbage data back, right? Like we just went through this on my podcast. I had a great person on that. That's what she does, is she sets up CRMs for people, because it's time consuming. Your price book and all the things in there, right? Like guys are just, like me, don't want to be in the office. Let's just get out in the field and make money, right? But knowing that literally every single step that you don't do and you don't really dial in, that's what's going to translate onto your P&L, into the numbers that you need to look at. So that's number one. The budget allows you to say, okay, if I'm at 5 million and I want to get to 7 million, and I know my average ticket, conversion rate, all the things are there, and I did that with 10 employees and 8 vans, now I want to go 2 million more. You literally have the process on how to get there. Like you can literally reverse engineer it. It's like, okay, I need to add another 2 million. If you know your average ticket, it's like, okay, I got to add 2 more vans. I got to have this many more calls per year. And yeah, it's a numbers game. It's a law of averages. You may not hit it exactly, but if you're tracking that, and it's like at January 1st, you know you need 300 calls a year per technician at X amount average ticket, and you're tracking that every single day, right? You can make really, really highly informed decisions. Is that the right guy in the vehicle? What's going on? You can turn things around faster. And it's literally like, okay, I know I need 300 calls to get to that extra 2 million. So what marketing do I have to deploy? How much training do I have to give my guys for when they're in the house, and closing percentages and average tickets and all that stuff? It all formulates to, okay, I can get that number, so.
I love all
reverse
that.
engineer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You broke that down so well. So many guys still say, "Yeah, we want to do 3 million next year." I said, "What did you do last year?" We were at 1.2. I said, "Okay, how do you get to 3 million?" They don't know. They just say a number,
Mhm.
and I know I don't want to sound rough. I know they're not getting to that number. They're not even going to get close because they don't know. But if somebody says we are at 1.4, this is how many calls we got. This is our average ticket. This is for every call we close 64% of them. You can just now say, okay, we got all our leads from Google. If we spend this much on Google, we'll get this. Like it happens before it even happens.
Yep.
Now you just have to execute. And then you just have to look, do we have the right people in the seats to get this work done? But so many guys, they just say a number, or, we'll just 10X it.
Yep.
How?
Right.
Well, how do you do that?
Yep.
But if you know all your numbers, you can do it.
Yeah. You got to have the combination of both, Kevin. The numbers, 100%. You're not going to always get lucky.
Yeah.
Like, I do consider myself, I say it all the time, I was the Tom Brady of plumbing, of home services. Every pass I threw, it was completion. Every Hail Mary I threw up there, it was there, right? But that's exactly what I was doing. I don't claim that I knew everything forever. But once I started learning, now that combination of everything I was doing, guessing, with the facts behind it, man, it's lightning fast.
That's why I love that you learned all that stuff and you've gone through it. So when you get into other companies, I know you're taking equity, you can take all that. You know what's going to happen.
Yep.
You have confidence. That's why when guys, something's not really working in their landscape and they say, I'm going to start doing painting or roofing, they're going to have all the same problems. The industry doesn't really matter.
If you don't fix the problem, like if I just have a plumbing department and I'm going to start HVAC because that's going to bring in more money and revenue, but if I haven't got the plumbing dialed in, you're just going to transfer that over to the HVAC side.
Same thing.
Yeah, it's just going to be the same nightmare you're going through on the plumbing side. Sure, it's more revenue, but revenue is not what matters. EBITDA is.
Yes.
That was strong. Revenue's vanity, profit is sanity.
What?
Yeah.
I mean,
love
all
that
the
statement.
sayings, all the
Yeah,
quotes
yeah,
out of it.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
at the end of the day, we got in business to make money.
That's right.